So it really does seem like the temperature of the housing market is cooling way faster than anybody could have imagined just a couple of months ago. Is that really what you're seeing?
Yeah, 100%. And, I just want to give a little perspective before we get into the cities that are going to have the biggest decline, because, a lot of people are blaming this housing downturn on increased mortgage rates, which is true to an extent, right? The higher mortgage rates are leading to declining affordability. But the real problem in the housing market is that home prices are too high. Right? You could have either higher home prices or higher mortgage rates, or higher or lower home prices, lower mortgage rates. We now have the combination of both, which is creating the issues. But it's really the fact that home prices adjusted for inflation are at their highest level of all time here in 2022, even higher than they were back in the bubble of '06. And so when the prices are that high, that's really what makes the escalating mortgage rates really problematic. It's not just that the mortgage rates are going up, it's that the prices are also 30 to 40% higher. And that means that no one can afford it. And it naturally means that home prices are going to start coming down, particularly in certain markets, especially across the Sun Belt. I think there's major housing crash risk across many Sun Belt markets that boomed during the pandemic. And now we're seeing, just in a month, massive signs of slowing, massive increases in inventory. You said 20% price cuts across the US. That's an accurate figure. In some markets, it's over 40%. And so it's really
Wow.
unbelievable. I didn't even expect things to move this quickly.
Let me throw one thing into the mix you didn't mention there, which was inventory, because we've had, and we talked about this a little bit the last time you were on, but we've had this narrative that, oh, no, housing prices are fairly valued because there's this persistent lack of inventory here in the US. I've been hearing from folks like housing analyst Ivy Zellman that there's been a lot in the pipeline, especially in a lot of these popular Sunshine State cities that have been growing super fast. Housing builders aren't idiots. They're looking to where the demand is, and they're gunning to build properties there. Before we had all the issues that have just happened in the past couple of months, Ivy was saying, hey, there's a lot of inventory that's about to come online in those areas. Well, now it looks like it's set to come online as prices are cooling fast. I mean, that's almost kind of the worst case scenario, right?
Nasty combination. And just for the figure, so everyone knows, we have over 1.6 million homes and apartments actively under construction right now, shovels in the ground, buildings going up, 1.6 million, highest level in US history, split roughly equally between single family homes and apartment units. And, it's, in my opinion, I've done several videos on this on my YouTube channel, Reventure Consulting. Home builders are going nuts. They're going crazy right now because, there's this narrative that there's a structural shortage of housing. It's not true. The inventory you're talking about, yes, it's low, but that was always a temporary, transient situation due to unique circumstances that occurred during the pandemic, like artificially low interest rates, stimulus checks, and by the way, foreclosure and eviction moratoriums that led to 3.5 million or 4 million fewer foreclosures and evictions. So you combine all that, you're going to get lower inventory. That doesn't mean that the structural inventory and the amount of homes over nearly 100 million in the housing market is too low. And the big mistake that home builders made is that they bet that, this inventory on the market would stay low. So they're building 1.6 million homes. Just as you said, there's a massive reduction in demand, particularly in the South. New data from the US Census Bureau shows that new home sales for newly constructed homes are down 35% year over year in the South, which is nuts.
Wow.
Because, that includes Texas, Florida, Tennessee, all the states pretty much that everyone's moving to. New home sales are down 35%. That's a scary figure for the housing market in the Sun Belt, because it suggests a couple of things, like, what you mentioned about rising mortgage rates, and what I mentioned about higher home prices. The affordability isn't there, which is causing buyers to drop down. But it also suggests that a lot of the markets that people said that everyone was just going to keep moving to forever, well, that movement is slowing. Fewer people are now moving into Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Austin, Texas, than they were 2 years ago. And that's a big problem because of all of the home building that's going on.
You made the prediction that the work from home movement, not that it was over, but that it was going to slow dramatically in terms of the population flows of people who were saying, all right, I'm just going to be a work from home guy now, and I'm just going to move to whatever metro I feel like working in at this point. So it
Yes.
seems like that's beginning to materialize.
For sure. That's definitely materializing. People are getting called back into the office. And, ultimately too, the affordability is a huge component, right? Where, I would say a place like Charlotte or Atlanta or Austin isn't like the first choice on a lot of people's lists who are looking to move from, say, New York or LA. But the reason they were high up on the list 2 years ago is because they were actually really cheap, right? But now these markets are not cheap anymore. And in some cases, places like in Tampa and Miami and Florida are as expensive now as Boston when you look at the relationship of local wages to mortgage payments and rents. And so now that these affordable markets have become so expensive, it's just a natural progression that fewer people are going to want to move there. And ultimately, if you zoom out and you look at 30 years, 40 years of data on the US housing market, this is actually how the housing cycle and the migration cycle works. They're linked together. There's periods where people move a lot, like we had over the last couple of years, and then home builders build a lot, and then prices go up a lot. But that's never really able to sustain itself, especially in an era of interest rate increases and inflation and Fed tightening. And so I think the big wake-up call here for a lot of people looking in the Sun Belt to buy a home is that a lot of the narratives that you were told over the last 3 years, they might have been true at the time, but they are no longer true anymore, and that these places are very risky to buy real estate right now in 2022.
If you enjoyed this clip, you can watch the full video it's from by clicking here.